So AEW is kind of in an interesting position. I don't know if you saw the main story in the Wrestling Observer newsletter this week was kind of Dave Meltzer not avoiding that AEW has issues while also pointing out, positives and putting a real positive spin on them.
They're
But-
still going to make money.
But at the same time, not just saying outright who's at fault for all of these problems and why the problems are there. And I guess this comes on the heels of, we talked about in advance, All in Texas. I guess word is that maybe they sold 6,000 tickets. They got like a $1.2 million gate. So you think, wow, $1 million gate. That used to be a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
They got $1 million gate day one, 6,000 tickets. But what are your thoughts on the state of AEW and what's going on?
And that's one thing they've mastered is fewer people will pay a overall larger amount for each ticket or whatever. That Dave's column or piece, article, whatever the case, talks about the ratings drops that have happened and talks about that the arena attendance drop had happened before the ratings drops. And he goes into a lot of detail on previous promotional wars in the territory days, whether it be St. Louis in the 40s, Montreal in the 70s, the IWA, all that we've talked about in various points in time.
Yeah.
Sheik and Bruiser. But you can't compare anything happening today to the, and he even mentions that, of course, that's all ancient history. Well, why did you spend half a page? Although that's the most interesting part for me. But you can't compare that anything now to the Territory Day wrestling wars because it was two different groups fighting over the same specific towns, fighting over the same specific buildings, fighting over the same specific TV stations, and the same specific fans. It wasn't, except for WCW and WWF in the 90s. It started with Crockett and Vince, but two national promotions from the start. It was WWF and WCW, and they were even more equal in terms of star power when WCW finally started bringing the names in, Hall and Nash and Hogan, etc. After that horrible early 90s period. That's the only thing you can compare to because it wasn't, they're fighting for the whole country and they're not fighting for a specific handful of TV stations, in broadcast stations in specific markets and only one or two suitable buildings in any town for wrestling. That's why those wars were so fierce and they didn't last long. But now with TV networks and corporate ownership and fucking billionaires, it can go as long as whoever's paying for it wants it to go, pretty much. But the WWF and WCW war, as I said, was more competitive because they kind of started, somewhat equally back in the 80s with Vincent Crockett's numbers, and they always stayed somewhat comparable, except for that shitty period in the early 90s, and then they were kind of comparable again, and then everything went crazy. But the problem here is not that people wouldn't maybe watch a second wrestling show, but this second wrestling show has gotten shittier and shittier. The talent being picked to be pushed is not competitive. Dave says you got to make new stars. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. But you've got to be able to pick the right people to try to make them. And Tony has not done that from the start. He has bought stars and brought stars in and diminished them. But he hasn't made one from scratch. If people could say MJF, he made himself. And it's not about two promotions going in with comparable talent and loaded up shows and hot-shotting and burning something out. It's about Tony just couldn't do this, and the stars that he did get that were meaningful, the few, ran counterproductive to his indie wrestling mindset and crew of EVPs, one of whom escaped to become the biggest babyface in the business. That's Dave won't say that because that would be directly offending Tony. So he will speak in generalities about you got to make stars and there's got to be the interest in this and that, but that's the problem. And people have figured out that this thing is run like Romper Room because all the backstage drama, and people blame Punk for that. There have been people with Punk.
Oh, it's Punk.
Well, no, but
call HR.
Before Punk got there were people punching each other, and after he's gone, there's still people fucking pissed at each other and suing each other. So, but that's the thing. It's turned out to be a big budget national version of a local fucking indie with a bunch of goofy indie fucking people. And that's kind of shit that happens in the goofy indies. But unless you glue yourself to an indie message board, you don't hear about it. But only this is hundreds of millions of dollars.
But you see, there's a couple of things. I read that article because, you know, the same way you saw it, a lot of the listeners sent it over. I think the disconnect is, one, when you say, well, things are great, the matches are great, and the pay-per-views have been great. They're great to a smaller and smaller audience for a reason. And part of the reason is that the matches that are great to some people are maybe that's not what's going to do it for a bigger audience. And secondly, in terms of the people Tony Khan has to elevate, he has to elevate young stars. They've spent so much TV time on Wheeler Yuta. That's maybe the worst case scenario, the worst example. Daniel Garcia. Not as bad as Yuta. You know what they did? They had it with Wardlow, and then as soon as the next night, or the Wednesday after MJF fucked off, they blew it with Wardlow's booking.
Yeah.
But that was the best case scenario, because he looked like a wrestler, he was big, the fans took to him, they were chanting his name, he was super over.
But you know, in hindsight, I don't know. Yeah, obviously they botched it, but I don't know if he would be any better off today, because I don't think, since we've heard him lately, or not lately, since we've heard him since then talk, and I don't know whether he would have had the ability to grab it by the balls, but I think that fucking Hobbs is maybe who they really missed a boat on. And can you imagine as much TV time as Garcia and Wheeler and Commander, or whoever the fuck the rest of these morons are.
Hologram.
Yeah, where did he go? Did he disappear?
Into gravity.
Gravity pulled him down. But, you know, Hobbs has everything. But nevertheless, that's, you know, that's the thing is, these matches are repetitive and redundant and indie level matches. The people that they had that could have non-indie level matches, Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, MJF, FTR, few and far between, and for various reasons have been nullified or left the building.
Hey, look at Ricky Starks. You want to talk about a younger wrestler, I don't know what his age, he may be in his 30s now, but a younger wrestler in terms of exposure on the national stage, who the fans took to as a heel and as a babyface. And who knows what the fuck happened? All of a sudden, he just went home and never came back. But that's another example of someone.
It has mentioned lately, yeah, I'm ready to come back.
I can't wait to tell everyone what's going on when I can. That's the other thing. For anyone who already doesn't have some sort of NDA in place, Tony's move now is going to be making everyone sign everything. His biggest fear is ending up in the shoot interviews he watched as a kid.
Yeah.
And he's going to do everything he can to get all these guys who have plenty to say to shut up. That was the big thing with Cody. All of a sudden, there were NDAs in place for Cody to leave. What were we so afraid of? What was Cody going to say? You smell like weed? I mean, what's he going to say? I mean, You know, what's he going to say? I don't understand.
That's the thing is
I want to hear what Brandy has to say, not Cody.
Well, you see where Tony's, oh, come on now. Come on now. You see where Tony's soft spot is as soon as the guy said, hey, his father pays him to stay home. Well, fuck them and pull all the guys and everything. He doesn't want people to tell people that he's not able to do this because he's always thought he could do this. And Dave has apparently propped him up all this time. You can do it. You can do it. And now Dave has to figure out a way to write about the fact he can't do it while not telling him to his face that he can't do it. But it's the picking of the wrong people to push. Talent judgment is the biggest part of being a booker. It's the repetitive indie style matches that now nobody gives a shit what happens to the human body because they've seen it all. It's the nonsensical booking that can only be kept track of by people who spend hours a day in a notebook with friends on the internet keeping track of the points in the tournament type of thing. It just makes no sense to normal people. And the ability not to be a boss but be a friend and have your backstage be a shit show where the boys can say what they'll do and not do, come up with their own shit and stick it in the program and work with or not work with whoever they don't want. And if nobody's happy, then we'll go home. Just your check will be in the mail. Just go home because I don't want to have to argue with you because we're friends.
Go home. Just sign this, though. Just sign and never say my name ever again.
But we've been saying this, and that's what's the matter. And there hadn't been any new developments in anything that's the matter. It's the same thing. It's just a cumulative effect of losing the fans and the viewers' patience because they have to put up with this one after another after another. And now they're left with, and they're still, losing them, but they've run off all the people who wanted to watch wrestling, and instead it's this indie fucking mindset bullshit that is continuing to run people off and continuing to not make the program successful, and everybody thinks they're making fucking movies.
Well, on the topic of the state of AEW and looking at the indies too, this thing with GCW, because you brought it up. They've now pulled, well, we brought it up together, I guess, because they pulled Ricky Starks. They pulled Willie Mack. They're running the Hammerstein, which, obviously people there saw as a issue. No communication. What came out that I thought was the most interesting was the promoter saying he's never heard from Tony Khan, ever. Because they've had a lot of things with Moxley when he was AEW's top star, where he was showing up there. But now AEW seemingly looks like they're trying to punish them for the comments one of their wrestlers, Effie, made. If you're AEW right now, with everything WWE's doing, do you want to push away one of the larger indie promotions? And again, we may not be fans of the stuff we've seen, but they're one of the bigger companies getting fans to see the wrestlers who they're bringing into their shows out there.
Well,
do you push? Because AEW needs relationships in this country, and all their relationships are like New Japan, AAA, Stardom, like all these companies that aren't going to help them.
Why do they need relationships with people in this country?
To help get future talent. If WWE's right now actively locking down every talent pool they can, either by going after the schools, the promotions, or IDing the individual wrestlers. AEW, the goal of that is to shut AEW out of talent.
Okay, well then here's an idea. Because before, and in the past, I have been a proponent of different promotions working with the smaller Ring of Honor, working with smaller regional local guys and booking some of in the Carolinas or in the Midwest, booking some of their guys on our cards, not to just make them look like jobbers, but so that some of their fans will want to come and they'll look like bigger stars, whatever the fuck. Or in other places. But that was because everybody was doing legitimate business and trying to make a profit. And right now, you can't, there is no reason for Tony Khan with national cable television and streaming coming up and $1 billion in the bank and this level of talent and this production to work with a fucking indie that has the bank addicted drug robber as the best friend of the promoter and they do death matches. And I'm sorry, fuck all of you who wants to see that shit. Something the matter with you mentally. But they do need what kind of talent are they going to get from there anyway? They spent $50 million on a video game. So why don't this guy take, and maybe Ring of Honor should be that, but that's another toy for him to book, or let Will Wheaton or Alexandra Pepperday maybe pitch in or whatever. Maybe some of the boys can make it up and he'll bless. I don't know what's going on. But just start a fucking training program and sign up some of these goddamn, just the same thing the WWE's doing. Sign up some of the goddamn indie level guys for not a life-changing amount of money, but for a legitimate amount of money that they could live on and train and work out, and not have to wait tables and etc. And they're beholden to you and you get first crack at them. But that would mean that he'd have to run a subsidiary of a business professionally and successfully when he can't run the goddamn main business professionally and successfully. But that's... he doesn't need to work with every fucking body. You want to bring in Japanese talent, work with New Japan. You don't have to work with every goddamn girls indie that fucking does fetish matches in somebody's apartment with a curtain over the fucking door, Emi Sakura. What the fuck? Remember seeing that?
I just heard clip. I just heard a clip of Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer arguing again because I guess the day before or whatever it was, right before Mina Shirakawa was going to get her world title match, she got like the shit kicked out of her by Emi Sakura in a match on Collision or whatever. And again, we don't care. But Alvarez is like, how could the challenger get the shit kicked out of her by Emi Sakura? And Dave's like, well, you know, Emi Sakura's never won a match in AEW. Again, there's a lot of problems there with this.
Anyway, but at least they had a ring. And they weren't in somebody's apartment with no furniture in it coming out from behind a fucking shower curtain. That's what I'm saying. Tony didn't need to go. That was because of Kenny's thing with, these Joshi princesses should be seen. Have you a Japanese talent pipeline for major Japanese talent, and maybe one in Mexico, although I have not seen any Mexican talent since the Lucha Brothers on his roster that made any difference because there's 18 million of them. They're all presented the same way and doing the same shit. And you've got 100 and got, what did we say, 200? Did we figure that out? Wrestlers under contract. Concentrate on 80 of them before you worry about where am I going to find my new talent? What the fuck?
A lot of them are working, though, in the at-home program.
Well, and there's no way that I would have been letting the plumber, Dick the Boozer, he wouldn't have been working independence even for a legitimate professional promoter, much less the guy that does garbage matches. Because I would say to him, I'm sorry that you have this fetish, John, for whatever this fucking garbage, hardcore fucking deathmatch wrestling bullshit is, but I pay you millions of dollars a year. I don't want my world champion on a fucking show that does that shit. And I don't want you getting hurt on somebody else's show doing that shit when I'm paying you. So you will work for me. The guy making 125 grand a year, I'll let him do some outside dates because he needs the extra money. And if he's only making 125 from me, I don't give a fuck whether he gets hurt or not. That's the way a fucking promoter talks. Sorry if I offended anyone.
Well, real quick, we'll end with this in this conversation about the state of AEW. I have a quote here from an interview Tony Khan did at the All In Texas ticket on sale event with Mr. Rightway, whoever that may be.
Wait, what? What now are there? Are they having a drugstore fucking sponsorship now? Oh, that's Rite Aid. I'm sorry.
It's spelled WRIGHT. So Right Way, Mr. Right Way. He asked if AEW would produce another console game, and if so, when? Here's what Tony said. Let me read this to you. Well, it's a great question, and I think it was a great experience for us. And now it's going to be something for AEW as a multimedia conglomerate, a worldwide corporation. Definitely. It was a great first entry with AEW Fight Forever.
Wait a minute. Hold on. I zoned out earlier, but let me catch up with you.
You missed several. People could still play AEW Fight Forever all over the world. And I think eventually, absolutely, we'll keep putting AEW games into the world. But right now, we're fully supporting AEW Fight Forever. And I'm excited about AEW Fight Forever. There's still more wrestlers and exciting things happening with the game. And, I think there's a lot of opportunities in the world of gaming, to your point.
What?
Oh. It's, as soon as you hear, well, it's a great question. Now, he starts so many of his answers that way.
Bring me up to date. Did this thing suddenly start selling the video game they did, the Fight Forever, or is it still on sale? We saw people tweeting pictures of it on clearance at Walmart or whatever. It didn't do what they had hoped it was going to do. I think everybody agreed on that, but is it still out there, or is it just floating around?
It's still out there. Technically, they could still update the game, but no one bought the game. The people that did buy the game seem to return a whole lot of those games, the physical units, to people who had digital downloads. Maybe I got a copy because it was free. It was part of the PlayStation Plus free games in a month, so I was able to download one. I didn't pay for it, but you could pay for, I guess, packs where you get different wrestlers. Maybe pack, actually. You get different wrestlers and you get to use them, but apparently the game itself sucks so bad that no one wants to do any of that. So they have a game that no one plays that they still fully support. It's a great question. Definitely. AEW as a multimedia conglomerate. A multimedia conglomerate.
So he owns the Dallas Times-Herald now.
A worldwide corporation. Because my dad got me an apartment in London.
Trademark.
Right, a worldwide corporation.
Now, hold on. If you mentioned his dad getting an apartment,
I didn't mean that in a bad way. I meant that in a pleasant way. That come here, son. Let me buy you this penthouse.
Give you an apartment.
Let me get you this penthouse. Meet your new doorman.
Cadbury.
So, we'll see what else Mr. Rightway can find out about this in the future. But that's the state of AEW. And Jim, do you think AEW right now, if everyone knew about the wrestling business the way we do, would AEW right now be able to go out and get insurance?
Well, it depends on what kind of insurance, Brian, because if they were to try to go out and maybe get fire insurance, I don't know, because sounds like they're about to have a fire sale over there. But I think health insurance, that's what they need, because they're risking their necks out there. And who knows what Tony Khan's insurance plan is, but I'll tell you what, folks, if you want to go to one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985, and I'll tell you what, how did those people afford $700 billion in coverage? And it seems like when they passed on, the family would have thrown a party. But nevertheless, it's the people at SelectQuote, because other run-of-the-mill ordinary life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less. I mean, you're paying for the whole suit and they're giving you a fig leaf. But SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. That's if you don't have many needs. But they will tailor it for you, folks. And I'll tell you what, if you have high blood pressure, no problem. It's not their problem, it's your blood pressure, but they can get you coverage. If you got diabetes, that's fine too. Well, actually, it's probably, again, a pain in your ass, but they don't care because they can cover you. And even if you've got heart disease, if you've still got a pulse, folks, SelectQuote partners with carriers that can cover those conditions and others you might find laying around your carcass or the corpse, it may be. After you're gone, they'll do a complete post-mortem and they'll find out everything that was wrong with you.
Let's focus on the living. Let's talk to the living.
Well, they have insurance brokers that they work with that they'll have you covered for the complete post-mortem and the autopsy, and they'll send all your organs back in a nice gift box. Folks, even if you have all those troubles, or even if you don't have any major health issues, they work with carriers that can get you same-day coverage with no medical examination required, although they are optional if you would prefer to have someone come to your home and stick something in various orifices to just, check your oil and see about the state of things. I'm sure we could work that out.
I'm sure you can't work anything out, and I'm sure there is no we here, and I'm sure that people should just go about things the normal way. And if you need insurance and you need help, SelectQuote is here for you. Tell them about it without anything else additional to that, Jim.
We. That means yes in French. Folks, head to SelectQuote.com. And a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. And if you're trying to get your husband insured without his knowledge, just give him a wink and knock 3 times, and they'll know what's going on there too. SelectQuote, they shop, you save, and get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/JCE. That is SelectQuote.com/JCE right now to get started. And it's that time of year. You got to get the health insurance. You got to check into that type of thing. So now's the time. Who knows? You're only going to get sick and die from here, folks. It's not like anybody ever feels better as they get older.
Again, let's focus on the positives. And if you need insurance, once again, Jim.
Yes, SelectQuote.com/JCE. What are you laughing about the fact that people are going to deteriorate?
This is not a laughing matter. This is a serious matter.
Age, I'm telling you, when age sets in, you deteriorate. You're right in front of your fucking very eyes. Look in the mirror. You'll see shit falling off of you.
All right, well, we're going to say SelectQuote. Once again, what's that link, Jim?
Well, it's not a link. It's a slash, SelectQuote.com/JCE.
Well, that is a link for the record.
Well, is that a link?
If there's a slash there, it's still a link.
Well, it might be the missing link. I don't know.
If there's a .com, it is definitely a link.
Oh, well, I thought that was a .com, a website, not a link.
All right, well, let's link ourselves back to reality here, Jim.